Hello folks, welcome to the Public Safety Update. I am your host, Stephen Hale. I am the Paris Public Information Officer, and today we're going to be talking about illegal street racing. And I am joined in studio today by Sergeant Howard Hibbler of the Paris Station of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department Paris Station in the Traffic Bureau. Sergeant Hibbler, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We are going to be doing some of these public safety updates over the next couple quarters as they come around, but today we wanted to come in and talk about illegal street racing as it happens in our community. So I've got some questions for you here today, but before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to the Paris Sheriff's Station as a part of the Traffic Bureau.
All right. Well, I started my career with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department back in 2005. I lateraled from an agency in LA County. Since I've been employed with the Sheriff's Department, I've worked a variety of assignments from patrol, I did evictions, I worked court services. Back in 2018, I was working as a motor officer out in the contract city of Temecula, and promoted to sergeant and was transferred here to the Paris Station, where I'm now currently the riding sergeant of the Paris Traffic Bureau.
Awesome. That's a good story. Thanks for being here, and thanks for everything that you do in our community. I know that you and your team are out there keeping us all safe, and so we're grateful for that.
Thank you.
So let's talk about illegal street racing, okay?
Sure.
This has been something that I know our city council has been aware of, our residents have talked about, and I know your department has worked very hard with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department all across to work on these issues. But let's start here. What are some of these major risks that we find associated with illegal street racing?
Well, illegal street racing is an unsanctioned event and usually causes death and serious injuries to drivers, passengers, and onlookers, as well as bystanders.
Sure. So, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be the person behind the wheel of a vehicle for you to have an impact or to be impacted by illegal street racing.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah. I think that's a common misconception. It's just me, and it's more than that.
Yes, it is.
How about, we talk about wanting Paris to be a place where people can live, work, and play. That's a phrase that we hear around here. But what does illegal street racing actually do to our community and the quality of life that we have here?
Well, one of the biggest problems is a public safety hazard. We destroy, our street racers destroy intersections, roadways. They create a lot of noise, large crowds, which litter, and it leads to other criminal activities that occur in our communities. Street racing is much like a gang problem.
Yeah. I think you brought up a good point. Like the gatherings that take place is another issue. A lot of times we think, hey, it's just two cars that are out there on the street and they're just going side by side. But then you have gatherings. Like you said, we see a lot of littering and it increases our trash. But the noise issues that we get, I mean, it really does bring down the whole quality of life in those areas. Yes,
it does. Yes, it does.
Who are some of these major players that we see in the kind of illegal street racing world? Is that just the regular 16-year-old kid that just got a new car, or does it kind of expand past that?
Well, a lot of this stems from YouTubers and bloggers, and they come in all different ages. I mean, you have some adult males as well as some young teenagers that are involved in street racing. So it's kind of a widespread problem. It's not specific to one particular group.
Right, and it likely expands to all demographics, all classes of life, all age groups as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you see anything that maybe it tends to lean more in a specific category of drivers? I mean, I guess in my mind, I think maybe it's new drivers, but like you said, it could be seasoned drivers as well.
No, it does not discriminate.
There you go.
Okay, it does not discriminate.
Everybody can be somebody that could be involved with that.
Yes.
Now here's the weird part. We're not too far from Hollywood, California, right here, where the movie capital of the world is. But how is some of cinema and television, the whole Hollywood industry, it's kind of glamorized this idea of illegal street racing. It's kind of taught people that you can take your mom's Honda Civic out if you want to and go do some illegal street racing in it. How has that kind of been a problem that police forces like yourself and your team have had to deal with?
So cinema and television has kind of helped create this subculture for street racers, thinking that it's pretty cool to go out and do this. It's also raised an awareness and education for street racers to go out and modify their vehicles. It gives them ideas on how to illegally modify their vehicles so that they can continue to street race.
And that's a good point too, I think everybody has the ability to modify their own vehicle, but then you also see some illegal modifications that might go into some of that, and that really changes the whole dynamic of what these street racers are trying to do.
Absolutely. We have what we call gross polluters, where individuals are changing their emission systems. Well, all those things require these vehicles to be sent to a state bar, sometimes for corrections.
And we don't need to name any of the specific movies, but it's clear that this stuff has been it's been glamorized for years. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s, but I can remember even the time when I was learning how to drive vehicles at 16. I was seeing stuff on TV all the time and thought it would be so cool to get out there. This has been kind of an ongoing problem.
Yes, it has. And again, it creates that subculture where they feel that we're not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, it's true. What are maybe some of the common areas that we see this illegal street racing take place in Paris? Your team's out on the beat on a regular basis. You guys see it. We obviously have complaints that come through in specific areas, but I'd like you to maybe talk about some of these areas and let some of these folks know that you guys are aware of this and you're conscious of it and you're looking for it.
Absolutely. Some of the common areas here in the city of Paris are Placentia and Redlands, very long stretch of roadway. We have Morgan at Indian, and we also have Getz at Ethernac, the dead end there. So we are very aware of those areas.
And there's some families that live in those areas too. I mean, they might be a little more isolated, but there's people that they traffic through those areas. I mean, Getz Road's got a lot of traffic on it.
Absolutely. And then you have the individuals that are coming home from work, and that can be victimized by these street racers.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing, is that we talked about earlier. This impacts everybody, and
it does.
It doesn't have to be somebody who's even involved in it. Anybody can be endangered with that stuff. So what are you guys doing about it over here in your traffic bureau at the Paris station? Like, how do you fix this problem?
So the Paris Station's Traffic Bureau, in conjunction with the Riverside County Street Racing Task Force, we have a zero tolerance enforcement for street racers. And, we go after them vigorously, I should add, citing for those modifications to vehicles that are illegal, as well as sideshows and street takeovers.
And it's a good point too, because it's not just you're citing somebody for speeding, right? There could be other citations that go into this. Reckless driving, you already mentioned your endangerment, your emissions, like modifications, illegal stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So I want to be clear, street racing is not just you're driving too fast, correct?
That's correct.
What are some of those other categories that we might see?
So when we talk about street takeovers, this is where we've seen on news recently where you'll get a bunch of individuals that will literally block an intersection, and they're doing donuts in the middle of the intersection. They're tearing up the roadway. They get charged with vandalism for that when they're doing that. Cities spend a lot of money to repair and keep the roadways safe, and engineered correctly.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And the other thing too is we don't want it tearing up and messing up our roads in our areas as well.
Absolutely.
What is the penalty for somebody that could be caught street racing? And it could be any number of those categories that we just defined. But what are some of those penalties that you could see?
So if you are caught street racing, you could be charged with a felony. You could have your vehicle impounded for upwards of 30 days. You could also be sent to a state license referee, and your vehicle could actually be seized, ordered by the court.
Wow, so this is not just, it's a quick, I was doing 15 miles over the speed limit, and so it's a fine, and I can, all it's going to cost me is a day in traffic court.
No, it's a little bit more serious than that. And fines are a part of it as well.
Sure.
You will be fined as well, but it's a little bit more serious than just a traffic ticket.
Right, and that's not even considering what it might do to your insurance down the road.
Oh, you definitely will get canceled if you are caught street racing. Insurance companies spending a lot of money for vehicle accidents, and so they do not want to insure risky drivers that are engaged in this kind of criminal, illegal activity.
Oh, I hear that. So maybe talk about this. How many arrests have you guys made, or I guess how do you even measure that metric with the stuff that's going on, and all of this regarding illegal street racing, because it is all encompassing and there's a lot of different factors that are involved in it.
So within the past year, the Paris Station, in conjunction with the Riverside County Street Racing Task Force, has been successful in making arrests for illegal street racing.
Yeah, and that partnership has been very instrumental in trying to reduce some of this stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what we want to see, is that continued partnership with our county support as well. So here's my last question here. If I'm a resident of Paris, I'm trying to make my community safe. I want my area to be a good place where I can live, work, and play. What are some things that I can maybe do, or what would you recommend residents to do to help alleviate this problem?
Well, one of the things is, if you have children or kids that drive, talk to them about the dangers of street racing, number one. So educate your family about that. If you see an illegal street racing event, we want you to dial 911. We want to know where it's at so that we can get deputies out to the area to try and make those arrests.
Yeah, so if you see something, say something, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The mayor has a phrase he likes. It takes a village to run a city, and I like that. But this has been great information. I appreciate your time today, Sergeant Hibbler. We have had some good conversation about this issue. I know that your team has been working hard around the clock to keep our city safe, and so we say thank you for that. Please stay safe out there as you try and continue dealing with illegal street racing in our city.
Well, thank you again for having me.
And thank you guys for watching this episode of the Public Safety Update. It's been my honor to be here with Sergeant Hibbler. Thank you for his time. We look forward to having more of these conversations with our Paris Sheriff Station in the future. For Paris TV, I'm your host, Public Information Officer Stephen Hale, and we'll see you next time.